Immigration law chose me, I didn't choose it. So when we think about paths to a green card, it doesn't really change whether you're a student or you're not a student, right? You can either look to an employer, you can look to a family member, you can look to humanitarian, and then you can look to, I like to put business and investment in one category. So
Yep.
if you want to invest in the United States and you have a boatload of money, you can literally do an investment. EB5, write this down, guys, if you're listening. EB5, the last time I checked, it was a little bit over $1 million that you invest and it goes straight to a green card. Make up a proper business based on your course of study, based on your education, and you can start out with an investment visa that doesn't necessarily lead to the green card initially.
All right, welcome back to this episode of the How to Get a Job podcast. Today, we might not be talking about how to get a job in particular, but I do know that a lot of big part of our audience are either, international students on their F1 or, first generation immigrants or, or want to learn more about the immigration laws in the United States and how does that apply to your career as well. And to do that, I have an amazing guest here today. I have Deani Winters Funday. Welcome. She is the CEO of Wynter Immigration Law Academy. Welcome, Deani. How are you?
Thank you for having me. And how appropriate. It's the first of the year, how to get a job. Thank you so much, Daniel, for having me on your podcast. Honored to be here.
No, very excited. Just to let you know, I just found out yesterday that our podcast, if you're listening to this, ranks in the top 1% of all podcasts globally. Yes. Yeah, I know. You know,
Congratulations.
I generally don't look at those metrics, right? If it was somebody who shared it with me, but it is exciting. It's exciting. But I'm excited, anyways, because we're just gonna double down on creating a more amazing content and having more amazing guests like yourself. And so, welcome. So, look, Deani, super interesting. I actually want to learn, how did you go into immigration law? Like, are you an immigrant yourself, or why immigration law? Why not business law? Why not
Right?
mergers and acquisitions? Why not do
Right.
divorce law? I don't know.
I don't know. I chose that I didn't want to get rich. I chose that I wanted to serve. I'm in the top 1% of immigrants and we choose immigration law. Quite frankly, Daniel, I didn't choose immigration law. Immigration law chose me. I was born in Jamaica, lived in Jamaica all my life, came to the United States as an adult. And I wanted to know very early on, why was I separated from my mother for over 8 years? And I
Mm.
kept hearing, well, I have to do this paperwork. I have to go sit with this lawyer. So when I came to the United States years later, I wanted to know that thing. What was that thing that kept me separated from my mother? And I found out it's US immigration law. And so I have spent my career trying to understand this thing. So immigration law chose me. I didn't choose it.
It's interesting. I think we kind of, before we recorded last time we spoke, and I was sharing with you that I'm an immigrant to the United States, and my immigration journey wasn't very smooth at all. I think there was 9 years of essentially being illegal or in limbo, or like got ripped off by, were scammed by a immigration officer that was actually just collecting money. I think my social security number actually is from a dead person. It's now like I'm a citizen. Really interesting story. We can dive into it. uh it's really interesting. And so, yeah, like, where my mom and I went to the immigrant social security office, put our finger, all of that, and it happens to be the guy was doing it very sketchy. Anyways, long story short, but as being in Colombia and back in the 1990, like late 1990s, early 2000s, a lot of Colombians were coming. Now you're seeing a lot more people from Venezuela, a lot of people more from Central America. And you hear that a lot. I work with a lot of international STEM students. They're here with their F1. I would be really interested to know, like, it seems like the U.S. is the hardest place to get some sort of visas or residency or citizenship. But is that the reality? What do you see as someone that understands the law?
I disagree with that. A lot of people assume, or a lot of people say the US is the worst, the hardest place to get a visa. It's the opposite. We have some of the most friendliest immigration laws. So that is why so many people are attracted to this country, right? And I know a lot of people are like, wait a minute, she's an immigration lawyer, she's an immigrant, she's not making sense, she's a sellout. I'm not a sellout, I'm just stating the facts, Daniel. If you think about other countries in the world, the US has a visa category for every single person. Whether it's a B, a C, a D, a E, just think about all the letters of visas that we have. Most countries do not have that. You reference like students. Right now in the US, we have over 1 million foreign students that come here to study. 1 million annually, right?
Yeah.
So we have some of the most friendliest laws in the world. So I disagree when, and that's what makes everything so rough because we have so many people coming to the shores of the United States.
What do you think is like what are some of the paths that you can take if you're looking to, become a resident and eventually a citizen, and you're either a student or you came here through some other way?
So there's a lot of paths if we're thinking about the green card. So
Yeah.
everybody loves that green card because the green card, it says I can live here, I can work here, I can stay here. So when we think about the paths to a green card, it doesn't really change whether you're a student or you're not a student, right? You can either look to an employer, you can look to a family member, you can look to humanitarian, and then you can look to, I like to put business and investment in one category. So a student can take any of those paths. They can say, look, I'm here on my F1, I'm going to get married, family
Yeah.
based, right?
Yeah.
I'm here on my F1, I'm going to seek an employer, or I might do it myself. Let me just sponsor myself based on my college degree. I'm here on my F1. I'm going to seek asylum, humanitarian. Or I'm here on my F1. I am going to invest in the United States and get my green card that way. So the paths don't really, they're not limited to a person or based on a status. The path really to a green card is based on whether you're eligible or whether you're not.
And so, how do you navigate those situations? So, I was writing them down. So, one, you were talking about like marriage. Fine, we can skip that one. Like, you get it. Like, people
Skip it.
listening, that's
Skip it.
probably
You
the
marry.
simplest
Skip
one.
it. I'm so sick and
You,
tired of talking about
yeah,
it.
yeah. So we're good. We're past that one. Let's talk about how to get a job. How do I get a visa for my merits? Humanitarian, same thing. Like, this is not a humanitarian podcast. Like, let's not dive into. I want to dive into more of a couple of ones that you said. Investment,
Hmm.
you starting your own company where you sponsor yourself, and then you a company sponsors you. So maybe we dive into the one that we in the investment, which I'm assuming be the shortest one, just because I don't want to get more complicated. But
Right, right.
how, if I wanted to, if I am an F1 student, or if I, I'm here on a tourist visa, and it might expire soon, it might not, right?
Hmm.
What's it look like? How much do I need to invest? What is there? Is it a dollar amount? Is it jobs created? Is it a combination? Is it different by state? How does that look like?
A combination. So I love that you're skipping all of the other stuff because these are what I refer to some of these categories of visa as the underused categories, especially for individuals like us coming from like a black or brown country, right? We always think about, I want to file asylum or I want to get married.
Yep.
So if you want to invest in the United States and you have a boatload of money, you can literally do an investment. EB5, write this down, guys, if you're listening. EB5, the last time I checked, it was a little bit over $1 million that you invest and it goes straight to a green card. Granted, you're going to work with an attorney, you're going to work with a team because now you're investing in the United States. You're opening up a business. You're starting a business that's going to create jobs, right? So you're going to have a team of people, someone like myself, maybe somebody to write your business plan, somebody to decide where am I going to invest in. But don't get frustrated because I said over 1 million. You can also invest on a lower level as well, and it can lead to a green card. For those who say, I don't want a green card, Daniel, I just want to live in the US, you can invest, I think, a minimum of 100, maybe 150,000, US dollars, and you can get an investment visa as long as we call it like an arm's length business. So don't make up some business that doesn't exist, right? Make up a proper business based on your course of study, based on your education, and you can start out with an investment visa that doesn't necessarily lead to the green card initially, but you can build that business up. And in a couple of years, you come back and you say, Diani, I have my million, I have my 1.5, I have my 1.8. I'm now ready to go after the golden green card.
So I have some questions here, right? I know some people that from Colombia that you know the president that was elected in Colombia 2 years ago wasn't the best, so they wanted to diversify their income. So they have a tourist visa and they bought houses. They weren't looking to move here. They just wanted to transfer their assets. But from
Right.
what I understand, they were sharing with me, right, is that buying real estate is not the same as an investment. Even though you open an LLC, you buy the real estate, and so because that's the most common, like, oh, well, I'm just gonna park my money in a Miami condo that's a million and call it a day.
No, that's what you've done is very great of you. You've invested in the United States, but you've invested into residential property. They want you to invest in a business. And I have a lot of clients. That's why I'm doing an event in Colombia is to educate, because I know about the Colombians. We have people from Honduras that are doing that, where they take the boatload of money because somebody told them to buy a house. They'll
Yep,
put $400,000, $500,000 on a house, and
yep.
then they call me. Then they call me. That thing that you're investing in must create jobs for US citizens or green card holders. When I say citizens, I'm using it
Yeah.
loose. The thing
Anybody who
has
can work.
anybody who can legally work. It has to create job, and it cannot be we can be creative and say, wait a minute, I'm going to work from home. Because of COVID, we're trying some creative things, but it cannot be your residential property. Buy a business first, invest in a business first, and then buy your residential home. But you got to invest in a business.
That's where I've seen people really default to restaurants, right?
Yes.
And I don't know, that's what I've just noticed, like restaurants just being owned by an immigrant, and because why one you can create enough employment in a restaurant, right, through the
Mhm,
servers and the cooks, right? Um,
mhm.
so then it has to do with investing in a business that then generates jobs, and it's okay. What about you can't just invest in the stock market? That doesn't work either.
No, no, that's getting a little creative. We can be creative, but it can't be you don't need a green card to invest in the stock market. You
Right.
can do that from Colombia.
Yeah,
You
back
can do
home.
that
You just
from Honduras. So you don't need and why would you need an investment visa to unless it's like a company and you're coming here to work with a company that does that, but
yeah.
it wouldn't be an investment visa for that one. No.
Mm.
No,
Okay.
sorry.
Let's talk about the other way you talked about. You talked about company sponsoring you, but before we dive into that, because I think that one can go into like a million roots, right?
Mhm.
I want to talk about, you mentioned something about you opening up your own company and sponsoring yourself, which that's the one I'm most intrigued about, because that's probably the most outside the box one that my clients and I don't even work with, because we work with a lot of companies that get their H-1B, and then they're like the
Mhm.
only route.
Here's what I tell, even without opening a company, here's what I tell students, especially my STEM students. I tell them, and if they're listening, I want them to write this down. I want them to write down EB2 NIW. It's
One
a
more time. Say it one more time.
Sorry. Let me
EB2.
go
I'm
slow
writing
because
it
I'm so
down.
excited. You know why you got me excited, Daniel? Because you said, forget about marriage, forget about humanitarian. Whenever
Yeah.
I tell somebody I'm an immigration lawyer, that's all they want to talk about. And
Yeah.
I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that category of visas, but it makes me sick because they're abused.
Yeah.
This conversation is an underutilized category. These visas are underutilized. Let's talk about petitioning for yourself, especially for my STEM students, right? Two options. They can use an employer or they can use themselves. Let's talk about them using themselves. EB2 NIW. EB2 NIW. And what that means is that you, based on your qualifications, you're going to say to the government, I am so skilled. I am so special. I am so extraordinary that if you just give me this green card, I know for a fact it is in the interest of the United States to have me here.
Yep.
So now, give me this green card. I'm going to find a job. And not only am I going to find a job, I'm going to make the United States a special place. I'm going to contribute so much. So it's like we're using all these highly skilled folks to change the makeup of our population. They have over 80% approval rate.
Both of these do.
Yes. They have an over 80% approval rate the last time I checked.
And so let's dive into this a little bit because now I'm super excited about this topic. What is the difference between EB2 and NIW?
All right. So they have the straight EB2 where you need an employer, Daniel. So you have to go to an employer and say, sir, can you please apply for me? When
Okay.
you add that NIW, you're saying to the government, NIW is National Interest Waiver. And a lot of my clients think they have to file a waiver with the government. No. You're saying to the government, to immigration, please waive the requirement for me to have an employer because the moment I get this green card, I'm getting a job. I'm highly
Mm.
sought after. I've published, right? It is in the interest. I'm going to work in a location where they need me. So you're
So
just, go ahead.
no, I was gonna say so obviously this sounds so good, but like what are like the you said STEM. Let's dive into more of what obviously I know that it's all subjective to the person reading the application, but there's obviously some barriers to entry. You can't just go like, hey, I just graduated with my high school degree and I took a
No,
science class, right? Like so what it, what
no.
so let's dive into like, is it a master's? Is it a PhD level? Do we
So
need
it
years of experience?
So when all you have is a bachelor's, we want to see at least 5 years of experience. We want to see
Got
some
it.
experience in there. If all you have is a bachelor's, if you have a master's, of course, the experience starts to go down. So
And
it
what, a
depends.
PhD?
No high. Oh, PhD is good. PhD, I'm moving you now out of EB2. PhD, we're talking about probably an EB1. But I won't get technical. But for my PhDs, I'm moving them into a whole other category because a PhD is telling me a lot of things. It's telling me discipline. It's telling me highly specialized. So if we're just talking about our bachelor's and our master's students, we do want to see some years of experience. We can patch together those years of experience. So you worked 2 years in undergrad here, you worked
Yeah.
3 years at Apple, you worked 4 years, you're a data analyst at Starbucks. I'm just talking about some of the clients that we've worked with. We're able to patch some of that experience together.
Okay. This is awesome. I'm just taking notes. How is this different than the H-1B process that most people take?
So H1B is not leading you to a green card.
Mm-hmm.
So when we look at visas, we're looking at, am I getting a green card or am I just getting the right to work legally? Our H1B folks are skilled workers in the United States, but it does not lead to a green card. It just means you can here to live and work up to 6 years, but you don't get a green card. There's no green
Mm-hmm.
card coming your way.
All right. So two questions. When you talked about the NIW and the EB2, and then you even threw there the EB1 for some PhDs, what does that cost, right? Because if I'm thinking of this, like, what is the
Yeah.
cost both to the government and what's the reasonable legal fees? Because obviously that's probably where I would assume that the majority of the cost will come from.
So for an EB2 in our firm, we're starting at about 17,500. Any employment based visas. And of course, please, this depends on us sitting with you, kind of seeing what your qualifications are. I like to say with our firm, we got to see around the bend, meaning I got to see where this can possible work for you, meaning you look good on paper, everything matches up, then we start at about 17,500 for this. For
And
the
the time
government,
frame. Yeah,
time
please.
frame.
We are government fees, and we'll go
So
to
the
time.
government is very sophisticated with employment-based visas, about 700 for like the O's, but you can pay $2,500 and you get your answer within 15 days. It's called premium processing. So within 15, yes. Yes. People think everything immigrate. There are different kinds of immigration, Daniel. Like they're different. It depends on the highway. Are you going to take that toll road or are you going to take the local road? So that's
So
what it comes down to.
okay, so the cost of the legal fee could be 17, 20,000, somewhere around that point. You have another 700 to 2,500 in immigration fees. What about the time that this process takes? Like, so if it's 15
15
days
days.
on the immigration side, I'm sure that the paperwork required for you to do that is not 15 days, or is it?
No, I would say when someone comes to us, here's what I know about like a lot of STEM students, a lot of EB candidates, whether it's EB2, EB1s, they're highly organized. By the time they come to us, they have done their research and they have an inkling that they qualify, right? So long as they are aware of this category of visa, they are not going to pick up the phone and call me. They're going to do a little due diligence. So they're going to know their transcript. They're going to know whether their program is STEM or not. They're going to know
Yeah.
whether they have the experience or not. So for us, we're really just putting the puzzle together for them. In our firm, I would say within 45 to about 90 days, we can get an EB2 out because we have to get like letters from, your peers. We got to make sure you truly qualified. So there is some work that we'll be doing on the back end that takes a little bit of, I call it the buildup.
Yeah. So it's super interesting because this is such an unspoken categories to do. And I have so many international STEM students. Most of them are masters and PhDs. And they're an OPT for 3 years, hoping to get the H1B lottery to then hopefully go through that process the company goes through. And then because most of them are from India, for them to be able to get a permanent residency is like non-existent, right? Like, because the wait time, which brings me to the next question, is like, is there country like specific things that we need to know about the EB1 or the
Yes,
NIW?
yes, 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 yes. China, India, South Korea, some of those countries, it's like going to Disney World and waiting to get on the most popular ride for those countries. So even though we're going to get that approval, there's nothing available for you, especially India,
Mm.
especially India. So I have clients from India. Yes, we'll get their EB approved, but there's no green card available. There's none because of the wait line for their country. So a lot
So
of times, go ahead.
would they be able to stay in America until the official green card
We
gets here?
need some we need something to hold them here. We really and it's a long wait. So sometimes I say, especially when they're on a student visa, don't plow through that student visa because we have duration of stay. So sometimes you just got to hold it a little bit because the wait time for those countries are ridiculously long. And there's no way around it because they're not going to say, oh, you have a petition that's approved, even though you've paid premium processing. There's still no visa, no green card available for you.
So there, at the end of the day, there is caps on countries when it comes to green cards, regardless of the path, whether it's EB1, EB2, H1B. All of them still there's a bottleneck for certain countries, and then there's also really easy for other countries.
Yeah, most people don't call it a cap. What Here's the thing. Green cards are numbers. Every country gets a certain amount. So it depends on the migration pattern for certain countries. Certain countries just have more people than others. Like if I were to do an EB2 NIW for someone from say Brazil, there's no wait time because there's not that huge migration, right? If we were to do Colombia, for example, there's no wait time. Meaning when that I-140 is approved, if the person is here, they're adjusting status if they're a student, or if they're here legally, they're adjusting, or if they're overseas, they're going straight to the consulate for their interview. For some of those countries I listed, the Indias of the world, China, those countries have a very high migration to the United States. And so there's that bottleneck. There's a bottleneck on their wait times.
It's so interesting because I would assume there was more people migrating from Colombia to the United States than from India to the United States.
It's what the media wants you to believe, and
Yeah,
everybody believes it, that the only people coming to the United States. Let me tell you, countries like China, India, those countries have more individuals coming to the United States than people from South America. But the light, what they want you to tell you, and the numbers are there. You could go to uscis.gov and they show you the numbers. They show you the numbers. Black and brown America, Latin South America, they don't have as many people coming as those people from, like, say, India. And granted, they're larger countries, higher population,
yeah.
but you have more individuals coming from those countries than you have people coming from South.
Do you think it's just the perception of legal immigration versus illegal immigration? Like you think a
It
lot,
is.
like most people from India are coming here as an F1 student and maybe choose not to leave, right? Or like, or they're like same thing with China. There's a lot, like you said, 1 million people are here as students, right, from a different country.
Mhm.
That's a
Yep.
million people that are here legally in an F1 visa, right? And that most of them are from China and from India, right? That's like 90% of all international students come from those two countries. Okay, that's really interesting. I was taking so many notes. I have to go back. Let's talk about the other. So the company. How can a company sponsor, or how do you get a visa or some way to stay in America longer term through the company?
Mhm. So there's different ways, right? It depends, again. Like, whenever I'm talking to individuals, Daniel, I go green card or no green card. Do you want a green card or no green card? For companies, they can go the non-green card way, might be an O. That will keep you here for about 3 years, and then you can extend. Like, we've done tattoo artists, anybody with some kind of extraordinary
Mm,
ability, we can get you on the O. That will keep you here 3 years. If you want to stay a little bit longer, you want that green card, then you would go, students, if you're listening, write it down. The company would sponsor you under a EB3. So it's called a perm. I know a lot of students have heard of it. It's a nightmare process. It takes forever. So it's the company saying, I want Daniel to be here as a permanent employee. And they go to the Department of Labor and they start a process for you. This leads to a green card.
how is that different than H1B? Because for the H1B, the company still has to go through the process. They still have to. I forgot the name of the form that actually it's a
Mhm.
lawyer that has to fill it out, like to show
Right.
that there isn't enough people with that skill set to do
Need.
this job.
There's a need.
There's a
Mhm.
need.
Because H-1B is temporary. Anybody that
Mm,
has a H-1B visa, it's temporary. You're not getting a green card. That company has to decide that they want to sponsor you. So that company can just be keeping you on the payroll, and they're saying, I don't want to sponsor Danielle, but I like him. I'll keep him here for 3 years, 6 years. I'll keep him on the payroll. You see that a lot at Starbucks with their data analysts. They'll keep them on the payroll forever, and then they may get laid off or they may not get laid off, depends on what's going on. But that company has to make the decision to say, I want to keep you here, and then go through the process.
mm.
Not every company. It's like, let's think about a marriage-based green card, right? That woman or that man have to say, I want to marry you and keep you here. I don't want you to just keep visiting me on a B1, B2. Let's
Yeah.
get married. Same thing, the company's saying, H-1B, I'll keep you here. You'll work for me, but I'm not ready to sponsor you, because guess what? With that green card, you're free to go. You're not tied to that company. You can get the green card today and tomorrow you leave.
Mm. But in the H1B, you can do an H1B transfer.
You can do the H, but you have to find the employer who's willing to do the H-1B transfer. With the green card, you just leave
Yeah.
and apply for another job.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It depends on the company.
Diani, this is great information. If people listening to this podcast want to learn more about you, maybe learn a little bit more about the services you provide, can you share a little bit more about, how can they get a hold of you? What are some of the services that you provide, and where they, and just more.
Love it, love it, love it. Thank you so much for having me, especially around conversation that does not have to do with marriage-based green card and humanitarian green cards. I am attorney Diani Wynter Funde. I am the founder, CEO, owner of Wynter Law Practice. We're based in Tampa, Florida. I have over 18 years experience in the field of immigration law. I like to say 28 because I've lived in this country for 28 years. So I like to say that I have 28 years of experience as an immigrant. I came here February 4th, 1996. We're based in Tampa, Florida. If you want to find us, Wynter Immigration, Wynter with a Y, Immigration, and we're located in Tampa, Florida. We specialize in complex immigration matters. So a lot of deportation defense, employment based, H2B, H1Bs. We love that kind of immigration because my goal, Daniel, is to empower and educate my community that there are over 100 ways to get a green card without getting married.
Oh, I love it. I love it. So we'll put all the links to your LinkedIn, your social media, but as well as your website, so that anybody that wants to learn more, maybe is in the market for an immigration attorney, they can reach out to you. This has been awesome. Thank you so much. Look, for all of you listening, if you've enjoyed this episode, if you've ever enjoyed any of the episodes that we've done over 300. We just found out that we're ranked in the top 1% of podcasts globally. Uh, we need your help to grow. And odds are, if you are listening to this, because someone shared this podcast with you, right? Podcast is not something there's like a search bar that it just, like an algorithm that shows it to you. So if you do know someone that it's an immigrant or is looking for learning more about the immigration process and different ways to get a green card, please share this episode. That's the price for the podcast. That podcast is free. We're not running ads. And so that's all we ask. If you've enjoyed it, give us a like. Thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. Have an amazing day, everyone. Thank you, everyone. See you guys on the next episode.